Hi there, welcome to Marketing Monday. My name is Natalie Armstrong-Motin with Marketing Resolution. Got my cup of coffee here. It is warm in Normandy today, so we've got a little iced coffee. Keep that coming. It's got a nice cooling effect. All right, today we're going to talk about 12 really common mistakes and some of my personal pet peeves that even I'm guilty of exhibiting in online meetings and webinars, and how those things impact your marketing and your reputation. If you've heard me talk before, you know that I contend that networking is one of the primary ways in which we build our businesses. And now, because of modern technology, a lot of that face-to-face networking has been replaced by our virtual presence in online meetings and webinars. So I've created a list of 12 things that I think are mistakes. Like I said, I'm guilty of them too, but let's talk about a few of them. And if you're guilty of some of these things, maybe that's something that you cannot do in the future, because it really does affect your reputation. We don't always know who else is in the meeting or online, particularly in a webinar. And what we don't want to do is anything that is offensive, etiquette-wise, so that a person who might possibly hire us chooses not to, or someone who could give us a referral or a recommendation chooses not to, etc. So let's talk about some of these quote unquote mistakes or my pet peeves. One is technical difficulties. In marketing, I think first impressions are really important. Sometimes they're everything. Sometimes we only get that first impression. We don't get a second or a third. And technical glitches can make you appear unprepared, unprofessional, even out of touch, right? And so we don't want to erode the trust and credibility with clients or partners or prospects by having these kinds of technical glitches crop up. So test your equipment. Of course, things happen from time to time that are somewhat beyond our control, but log on early, test your equipment, test it again, be sure that you're comfortable with all of the toggles, the buttons, the switches, etc. And I think, particularly for some people, they exhibit a consistent pattern of technical difficulties. And this leads me to think of them as being unreliable or careless. And that really does hurt their brand image in the overall marketplace. So again, conduct your checks in advance. Number 2 on my list is background noises and distractions. Now, when we're working at home, of course, things are going to happen. The delivery man rings the bell, the cat jumps up on the table. There are things that are sometimes beyond our control, but we can mitigate those things. Marketing is about creating really strong, clear messages, and background noises and distractions dilute that message, making it really difficult for our audience, if we're the speaker, or our colleagues, if we are fellow participants, to focus on what we're saying. And of course, the worst is when we are the neutral and we've got clients and parties in our rooms. So just really mute your microphone when you're not speaking, choose a quiet location, invest in some decent equipment, and show that you really value your audience, your colleagues, your clients, that you take your role seriously. And all of these things reflect positively then on your brand. Number 3 on my list, I see this happen when I attend webinars or online conferences a lot, not so much in meetings, but a lot in educational settings. And that is multitasking or a lack of focus. And marketing requires an attention to detail and engagement with your audience, your colleagues, right? And multitasking during a meeting signals that you're not really invested in the conversation. This makes your colleagues feel undervalued, ignored, makes them understand very easily that they are not the priority, that the conversation is not the priority. And we don't want people to feel that way or think that way. So if you're logging on for a conference or a webinar, the people who have put together the meeting, the conference, the webinar, they invest a lot of time and effort in putting these programs together. When you sign up for them, especially if you pay for them, but even the ones that you attend at no charge, give them your full attention. You've signed up for it for a reason. So set aside the other things, focus on what's going on. If you can't give it your full attention, then, you might not actually need to be there. It's either kind of a priority or not sort of a situation. So demonstrate the focus and the engagement that shows that you respect the speakers, the presenters, your colleagues, the organization that organizes these things. They're all really committed to delivering value to you. Commit to them in exchange, and that just strengthens your reputation in our industry. I think next is dress for the occasion. In every virtual setting, your attire communicates your level of professionalism. So if you're, recording a video that is going to go out to potential clients, that's one level of dress, probably fairly high, pretty tony. If you are having just a casual networking event amongst colleagues, sort of a coffee moment with colleagues, you can dress a bit more casually, but really think about how you present yourself. Dressing too casually for any of these online moments can give the impression that you're not taking the moment seriously. We don't want to do that. So dress as you would for an in-person meeting. Clean, professional, right? That kind of thing. So don't take it too lightly. I get it. We're all working at home. We're in our yoga pants and our house shoes. We're in jeans, etc. And yes, they are super comfortable, but keep in mind always the tone of the meeting, the conference, the conversation, or the mediation that we're having. Next, this one is hard, not because we're not good communicators, but number 5 is interrupting others. And again, for us in particular, as neutrals, but also as marketers, there is so much about listening. And in fact, it's probably more about listening than speaking. And interrupting others comes across, again, as being disrespectful. And it can really disrupt the flow of the meeting. And that leads to missed opportunities to connect with the people on the other side of the screen. And regular interruptions make you appear rude and domineering, and that can really harm your relationships and your brand perception. So instead, just like we do in our mediations, practice patience and active listening, allow others to finish speaking entirely, get a visual confirmation that they're finished speaking, and this shows that you really value their input. It fosters a collaborative environment. Key qualities for us as neutrals and as marketers. You can always use the tech tools like raising a hand, right? Or giving a signal or sending a private message to the admin person. There are some ways that you can get around this, but just clicking your mic off of mute and then joining in the conversation, it's a bit abrupt. It's not the same as in a face-to-face meeting. I think next, one of my, pet peeves, I suppose, for online meetings is when the meetings are overlong or really unstructured. Time is valuable for everybody. And an overlong or unstructured meeting just wastes time. It dilutes the impact of the message. And then we all become sort of disengaged or even frustrated, right? And we don't want that to happen. An example of this is if you join a webinar and the admin asks each of the 30 people to quickly go around the room, quote unquote, and introduce themselves. Well, if 30 people take 60 seconds to introduce themselves and it's an hour-long meeting, they've consumed 50% of the meeting time. As much as I want to get to know my fellow colleagues and participants in the meeting, generally I'm there to get some things done, right? To go down the task list of the meeting. And the engagement part comes a little bit later. So depending on the situation, you might want to save those introductions, log on early, meet your fellow colleagues before the meeting starts, or stay on after we've concluded the meeting for a coffee chat or something else. But when you tell me that, this meeting starts at 5 p.m. and concludes at 6, and we spend the first 30 minutes introducing ourselves, I personally find that really frustrating and not always the best use of time. Now, for purposes of networking, then I do enjoy the meet and greet time. But that aside, keep your meetings, if it's a true meeting, keep it concise, keep it structured, respect people's time, stay on topic, etc. Next on my list is inadequate engagement. Again, everything we do is marketing, and engagement is a real cornerstone of effective marketing. So failing to interact in any way, shape, or form with your colleagues or your clients, or, when that ball gets dropped, it really makes you appear distant, even uninterested. And again, this weakens your possibility of connectivity with your audience and, brings down the brand that you're working so hard to build. So figure out how you can incorporate interactive elements. They can be something as simple as a message, or, if a speaker says, does anybody have anything to contribute or any questions to ask? Go ahead, put your question in the chat or raise your hand, interact, show people that you really are a credible authority on this topic, or that you really are a curious cat and you've got questions, you want more information. But engagement, it does really make a difference. It also makes you more memorable. So for those individuals who are going to be a source of referral, they're going to remember you substantially more than the person that didn't engage in the webinar or the meeting at all. Again, my next point is about time zones. We're all online at different times. Just, be aware that in lots of these meetings and webinars, there's a global audience. And so you can double check, and, we're all online. Use your online device to double check that you've got the right time zone. And this is particularly true in the spring and the fall, when we have daylight savings time and we're off daylight savings time. Be sure that you're double checking. Some states, some countries change, some don't. The United States doesn't change the same day, not even sometimes the same week or month as Europe or Asia. So always just double check. I've been caught up making this mistake, a handful of times over the decades. Next on my list is following up. Marketing is a lot about building and maintaining professional relationships. So failing to follow up after a meeting can really lead to some missed opportunities, or a perception that you're maybe not truly committed or as organized as you ought to be. That makes you seem unreliable, uninterested. And again, this erodes the trust that others have in you and your services. So you want to be sure that you send any follow-up notes or action items, that you do it not immediately, but promptly after the meeting. And this shows that you're organized, you're committed to delivering results, and this really strengthens your professional reputation and the brand. Number 10 of 12, if I hadn't mentioned that earlier, 10 of 12, don't forget to turn on your camera. This isn't always appropriate, so don't do always, right? But turn on your camera. Turning on your camera shows that you are engaged and fully present in the meeting or on the webinar or at the conference. When you keep your camera off, especially in a smaller meeting numbered setting, this makes you, again, you're distracted, you're disinterested, you're not there, you're not invested in whatever the meeting or the webinar is. As a speaker on webinars and podcasts, etc., it's really, really hard to be the presenter and be the only person. There might be 50, 100, 150 people in attendance. Nobody has their cameras on. So as the speaker, I can't see your faces. I don't know how you're reacting. I don't know if you're snoozing away. I don't know if you've wandered off. I don't know if you're deeply engaged. I don't know if you want me to continue following a line of thought because I can't see you. So especially if you pay for a program, be sure that you turn your camera on. The people who are preparing these meetings, again, they go to a great deal of effort. The speakers go to a great deal of effort. And then the audience shows up and there's no face, there's no interaction, there's no engagement. So turn your camera on. It's so much better for everyone who attends. Now, having your camera on all the time is one of those things that can get us in trouble. So before you join a meeting, do a quick private check, right? Make sure you're not in your pajamas. Make sure that, for those of us who travel, is your travel companion aware that they're going to be on camera, right? So there are some situations, maybe you're driving, and that's an unsafe place to have your camera on. You really should be focusing on your driving, listening to the webinar, listening to the conference, sure, but not a screen engagement, so to speak. All right, here's another one of my pet peeves. People who eat during the meetings, during the conferences, during the webinars. It's really distracting, really unprofessional. And if they haven't muted their microphone, the sound of chewing, the sight of food, watching them drip sauce down the front of their shirt, this is all really distracting. And I think it's just inappropriate for online meetings. If you're truly pressed for time, have some protein bars next to your laptop. Take some quick bites, join the meeting, and then finish your protein bar or have yourself a proper meal. But eating online, I just think, yikes. It's just super not cool. So avoid eating or anything really that requires attention, like a meal, during the meeting. I think it's most important, of course, during a small meeting. The exception would be if you and your colleagues are getting together and you're having coffee together, you're having snacks together, you're truly having sort of the wine hour social network. That's a bit different. But if you need to drink something, have a glass of water, have your cup of coffee so that your throat doesn't get parched and you continue speaking and interacting. But eating, I think, is a big no for me. And then the last one on my list, number 12, is don't forget at the end of the meeting to have a wrap up. So conclude with next steps, clarifying, what we're all going to do next, when we're going to meet again, were tasks divvied up, those kinds of things. Cover the key points, right? But don't just leave the meeting without any clear understanding of what comes next, I think is the message here. So instead, just take a brief moment or use technology to take notes, to end the meeting, summarize the key points, assign tasks, clarify any deadlines that have to be met. And this makes sure that everybody is on the same page and knows what to do next. And if you're using technology like, Whisper Notes or something of this, an AI or any other thing, then for those who couldn't make the meeting or for those who didn't have an option but to log on late or have to leave early, then they've got the full minutes of the meeting. So anyway, those are 12 of the mistakes that I think a lot of us make sadly too often. Again, I'm guilty of making these mistakes, but I gave you some of my pet peeves, some of the things that we get right, some of the things we get wrong. But online meetings, these virtual webinars, conferences, they're not the exception to our marketing, efforts. They are marketing. And remembering that every time you're online, you are marketing and promoting, you're building your brand. So avoid my mistakes or the mistakes you see other people. Make your own list of pet peeves. Actually, I'd be really curious. What are your pet peeves for online meetings, webinars, and conferences? Drop a note in the comment section and let me know what you really get frustrated by. I'd love to see what your pet peeves are. So drop me a line. And then if you've got something that you really like, someone's been an extraordinary example of, mismanners, let me know what that is too, so that we can all improve ourselves a little bit. So I hope that today's Marketing Monday helps you to build stronger relationships and foster trust, ultimately achieve greater success in your marketing efforts.